Welcome to the Spiritual Connection Podcast. I am your host, Jill. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about your energy, their energy, manifesting, mindset, creating high vibrational healing for you, body work, the importance of massage and self-care, and much, much more. Let's get rolling. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Om Shanti Healing's podcast, The Spiritual Connection. In today's episode, we're going to talk about living with anxiety and finding peace in the storm. I'm your host, Jill, and I'm so happy and grateful that you're here with me. So, in this episode, the deeply personal struggle of anxiety is in so many people. Severe anxiety disorder is real. If you or someone you love is dealing with anxiety, this episode might be for you, and you can certainly share with anyone that might benefit from it. We're going to take an honest look at dealing with anxiety in this episode. Okay, so severe anxiety is a debilitating feeling that consumes you. We're going to discuss it a little bit more in detail in some ways that I have found helps manage it. Before we begin, let's take a moment to acknowledge that this is a safe space. Okay, everyone's journey with anxiety is unique, and there's no shame in seeking help or feeling like you don't have all the answers. Anxiety is real. It's consuming. It affects everything in our body and our mind when we go through our triggers and we spiral. It can affect anyone, regardless of their age, gender, or background. So let's dive in a little bit deeper. Understanding severe anxiety disorder isn't just about feeling nervous before a big presentation or worrying about an upcoming event. It's much more than that. For those who experience it, anxiety is like a constant, uninvited, invasive companion that doesn't ever let go. Sometimes it feels like an ever-present weight on your chest, giving you chest pains, or a racing heart that's impossible to slow down, that raises your blood pressure, that just exacerbates the situation. So what exactly is anxiety? In simple terms, it's the body's natural response to stress. It's the feeling you get when you're in a dangerous situation, like standing on the edge of a cliff or seeing a car coming straight towards you. This kind of anxiety is normal in the human body. It's your body's way of preparing you for fight or flight. When you face danger, it's triggered to protect you. But for people with severe anxiety disorder, this response happens even when there's no immediate danger. You can have a trigger of an experience like your dog dying that could send you in a spiral of fearing your partner dying and your kids dying and whatever else, that can send you in this dark rabbit hole of torment for days or weeks on end. This body response is fight or flight. It's a natural response to protect us, but this mode that we get into at times when it's not needed can be triggered by something as simple as that, and then stick around for way longer than you want it to be there. A lot of people have social interaction anxiety, like social anxiety about being in a crowded place with a bunch of chaos and noise. Social anxiety about speaking in public or confrontation with somebody that's been upsetting you. Let's go over some symptoms of severe anxiety that could be very overwhelming and debilitating in your day-to-day life. So there's the constant worry. It starts with the trigger, right? Something happens that triggers you to have a fear response, whatever it is. And then that fear response often brings things into your mind that haven't even happened yet. Like, for example, your dog dying, like I had mentioned. And then the fear of your partner dying or your children dying or your parents dying. And living that grief experience over and over and over and over in your mind with these whirling, perpetual thoughts of just doom. Then physical symptoms come, like racing heart, chest pains, sweating, dizziness, nausea, crying, inability to just function, right? And then restlessness, feeling on the edge, on the brink of losing your frickin' mind every single day. Sorry, that grunt was my dog. She's right here next to me, and she's a grunter. So the next one is trouble sleeping, insomnia, focusing, right? Like you can't focus on anything. Your mind is racing, and when you try to go to bed at night, you're just spinning. And then you're up at like 5 a.m. if you do get some sleep, waking up with the spinning again, with the thoughts of whatever. And it's ridiculous, and it pisses you off, and I get it, and you feel ashamed and sick of it, and sometimes it even makes you feel like you want to just end everything because there's no solution to the problem. But I'm telling you, the panic attacks, those sudden urges will eventually taper off. Those urges of fear, though, and discomfort, I understand it. I have empathy for you, and I feel for you. The chest pain, the difficulty breathing, or the sense of impending doom in not being able to cope with day to day. I understand you, and I'm sorry that you are going through this problem in your life, because it's not a switch that just turns off. Living with these symptoms day in and day out can feel exhausting, isolating, and even terrifying. But I tell you again, you're not alone. And there are ways to manage these overwhelming feelings. Now let's talk about some of the struggles that come with living with severe anxiety. It's important to remember that anxiety doesn't just affect a person's mental health. It often impacts every aspect of your life, and you know that it does if you struggle with it. Most people do, to some degree, struggle with anxiety. From relationships to work, or even day-to-day activities that can trigger some sort of problem or complexity in your mind that makes you spin out. Number 1, the social struggle. Anxiety can make simple social situations feel like an insurmountable challenge of misery and discomfort. For someone with severe anxiety, the thought of going to a party, attending a meeting, or even making a phone call can feel terrifying. The fear of judgment or making a mistake in front of others becomes so consuming that avoiding these situations often feels like the only option. Number 2, the impact on your work and daily life. Anxiety can also interfere with your ability to function in your daily life. For instance, going to work might feel daunting and just horrible. You might have trouble focusing or completing tasks, or your memory might lapse. The physical symptoms of anxiety can also leave you feeling like so exhausted and just drained. You might even worry about whether people around you notice that you're struggling, and this can make it even harder to face the day. And then you get paranoid that they're judging you or they don't like you because you're putting off this vibe, right? That they're probably picking up on that you don't like them. But really the vibe is just you're fucking overwhelmed and you can't handle life and you're going through a hard time. Nothing against them. It's just your internal struggle that's projecting that energy of I can't deal with interacting with you right now. I'm doing everything I can to just breathe and not frickin' lose it. Number 3, the cycle of negative thoughts. Gosh, we all know what those are like, don't we? The ones that us have the anxiety issues. It is not fun, right? The cycle of negative thoughts. It definitely is a cycle, isn't it? It's circular. Severe anxiety often leads to that cycle of negative thoughts in the worst case scenarios of everything under the frickin' sun you can think of. You may find yourself thinking about something that happened days or weeks ago, or something that hasn't happened at all, replaying every detail and imagining that people are judging you about it. These thoughts can escalate quickly. And it's just that cycle of causing more anxiety and leaving you trapped in this loop of perpetual worry. Number 4, then we come to the isolation. Because anxiety can be so hard to interact with others, many people with anxiety just shut down. They isolate. They stay home and instead of going out and nurturing their friendships. There may be times when it feels like no one understands you and what you're going through. You may find yourself canceling plans or withdrawing from friends and family, which only deepens the feeling of isolation and really kind of self-talks you into feeling like no one loves you and no one cares about you and no one wants to hang out with you and why aren't my friends calling? And those kinds of thoughts can spiral, which certainly makes everything worse. Because really what you need in these situations is support. But it's really hard to ask for it sometimes, isn't it? Especially if it's chronic. Like, you can't just call your friends for emotional support all the time. You got to be fun sometimes too, right? You got to go out and just be light and enjoy each other's company. It can't be all drama, right? So if you struggle with it all the time and your life really is all drama, you tend to just pull back from reaching out, right? Because it's shameful. You know, you feel embarrassed by it. You're just like, hate it, that it's part of you and it won't ever shut up. And you don't want to be dragging your friends down either, you know? So I get that it's like, it's hard. And the solution is to just not leave the house. But that's not a good idea either, because then you're just stewing in it. You're sitting in the festering energy of your own victimization, and you're not switching the energy at all. If you stay home and you don't do anything except sit in your own self-pity, it's not going to just magically stop. You got to shift the energy. You got to do something different. You got to get your head in something else to help you get out of that cycle. Okay, so here are a couple strategies for managing severe anxiety. Okay, while living with the severe anxiety, and we know it can be incredibly tough, there are some ways to manage it. So let's go over some strategies that can help bring relief and improve your quality of life. The first one is therapy and professional support. One of the most effective treatments for severe anxiety is talk therapy, specifically cognitive behavioral therapy. It's called CBT. It helps you identify negative thought patterns and replace them with healthier, more realistic self-talk. A therapist can work with you to develop strategies for coping with anxiety in specific situations that trigger you. And more than likely, they're on your insurance policy. So if therapy alone isn't enough, medication prescribed by a doctor can be helpful in some cases. Now, antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications can work to balance chemicals in the brain and reduce symptoms. I've tried many different ones, but just be cautious because, as you know, every prescription has side effects. And the side effects might exacerbate the anxiety. If you read anxiety medication side effects, one of them on there is anxiety, which kind of blows my mind. So I'm not going to say yay or nay on that. It is an option. I personally try to avoid it. They don't really work for me anyways. So we are going to move on. Number 2, mindfulness and breathing exercises. Now, when anxiety starts to feel overwhelming, we tend to stop breathing, right? We're in a panic, so we hold our breath. So recognizing when you're doing that and when you're tightening up your stomach could be really helpful in then shifting that energy to help ground yourself more in the present moment. That really isn't fearful. The present moment isn't dangerous. It can be incredibly helpful. Okay, so mindfulness techniques such as paying attention to your breathing. Like I enjoy the 4 count, 2 count breath. So you inhale for 4, you hold for 2, and you exhale for 4 and hold for 2. And then you repeat and kind of get the feel and the rhythm of that. And then you can turn the 4 into a 6 and the 2 into a 4 and breathe in deeper and hold for longer. And then continue to kind of elevate that, go to that next level of adding numbers to kind of increase that inhale and increase that holding of the breath. And what that does is it gets your mind out of that cycle of just chaotic fear thinking and gets you in a state of focusing on the counting, which does help take you down a little bit. It's never completely shut it off for me, but it helps in the moment for you to do that. Okay, it kind of gives you a bit of a reset. Okay, it engages your mind with your body in a different way, and practicing this can help reduce some of the physical symptoms of anxiety. Okay, so repeating this a few times, focusing on your breath, and it's a quick way to bring yourself kind of back to present, back into the room that you're in that is not a dangerous situation. Number 3 is establishing a routine. So creating a sense of structure in your day can be incredibly comforting. You think about anxiety is like never-ending chaotic noise in your head, right? You feel out of control. You have no power, right? It just takes you over and you're the victim. And you have no say in where this anxiety is going to go and how long it's going to last. So to counter that a bit, establishing a routine and setting specific times for specific things like meals or work or exercise or time for that breathing and relaxation meditation time, having a routine can help reduce the unpredictability that triggers anxiety and keeps it going. Does that make sense? Like you're taking your power back in a sense by getting up at 8, going for a walk, coming home, doing your meditation, and then you boom, 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 boom. This is my day, every day, being accountable for those time slots, for those different things, and sticking to it. The stick-to-itiveness and the demanding that it happens and your accountability around that helps to turn the switch down a little bit. Okay? So self-care is number 4, and physical activity. Taking care of your body is equally important for managing the anxiety symptoms. So making sure you take your vitamins. One thing you can do is you can up your multiple B vitamins and up your C vitamins, but make sure you're taking all of your vitamins to help. Upping your magnesium can also help with calming the nerves. Ashwagandha is helpful as well. It's gross to taste it, but it's worth it if it helps turn down that dimmer, that switch, right? That dimmer switch goes down instead of up. It's worth a little gross tincture of ashwagandha to get you through. Regular physical activity. So, like, what kind of exercises do you enjoy? Taking your dog for a walk helps release endorphins, right? The brain's natural mood booster, right? Eating your favorite foods that are healthy, not fries and burgers every day, but I would say if a fries and burgers is something that like comforts you, go out and get one, for crying out loud. Whatever helps you feel better, just don't make it a daily thing, right? Getting enough sleep, I get the insomnia component of anxiety, and I get the waking up at 5 a.m. part too, right? So maybe going to sleep like earlier in the night, and L-theanine is a great one to take before bed. It's an amino acid that our body produces naturally, but if we are low on it, our anxiety levels are higher. Also, another one, as far as like moving your body, if you enjoy walking, do that. That's great. But one thing that has really helped me is swimming. I've been going to the pool, the local pool here, and getting in the lap pool and swimming laps. So what it does is it helps to reset your mind. And plus, being in the water, that anti-gravity kind of feeling is soothing. It kind of takes the pressure off, takes the heaviness off your body for a little while. And as you're swimming laps, your mind is focusing on your breathing with the swimming and the moving of your arms and the kicking of your legs. And it really helps, for me anyway, kind of just reset everything and take some of that anxiety out of my body. It helps to turn the switch down a bit. And I feel great afterwards. So hopefully, if you have a way to do that in your community, I'd give that a whirl. Number 5 is seeking support. It can be very isolating living with anxiety, can it? You feel like you're alone and no one really understands what you're going through. But reaching out to a support group or confiding in a trusted friend or family member can really make a world of difference. Talking about your anxiety and sharing your experiences and listening to others can help reduce feelings of isolation. And you might be very surprised by how many of your friends have anxiety too. And they don't feel like they can talk about it with anyone either. And once you kind of get vulnerable and bring it up, you'll realize that you have another thing in common and that you can support each other. And it really is quite beautiful. To wrap up, living with severe anxiety disorder is undoubtedly challenging, but it's important to remember that it doesn't define you. You are more than your anxiety. And while it may also be an uninvited part of your life, it doesn't have to control your life. As hard as you may think it is, and as much as you may not believe that, try not to let it control your life. There's always ways to manage it, reduce its impact, and reclaim the peace within you. If you're struggling right now, know that it's okay to ask for help. Whether it's therapy, medication, self-care, or simply opening up to loved ones, there are paths to healing, and take it one step at a time. Thank you so much for listening today, and I hope this conversation has helped you feel seen and heard and supported. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share it with someone who might benefit from hearing it. And remember again, guys, you're not alone, and there's always hope. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. That's a wrap for today, folks. Thanks for spending the time with me. And don't forget to check the notifications below on my social media links, my YouTube channel with self-care and meditations, as well as my omshantihealing.com website where you can get info on spiritual coaching and my online courses. And as always, if you do enjoy my podcast, don't forget to subscribe or sponsor below. We'll talk to you soon. Have a beautiful rest of your week. Bye-bye.